YouTube, what it do? It's your guy CJ back with another video, back with another episode of the CJ Wilkins YouTube channel. Thank you all so much for the support, man. I really appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me and support my brand and everything. It means a lot to me. I want to chat with y'all for a second, man. I've been watching a lot of one of my guilty pleasures on YouTube, right, is watching some of the true crime, some of the true crime channels, right? And, it's a bunch of them. Like Forensic Files is my favorite, but like some of the newer ones, like there's one called Twisted Crimes, I think, that's really good. And some of the stories on there, man, are just, it's mind-blowing to believe how wrapped up into people some folks get. You know what I'm saying? And Twisted Crimes is like a true crime channel. They use an AI voice to tell the stories of, like, couples that kill each other, or like marriages that, end in one person taking out the other person and stuff like that, right? And it's always like a plot twist or like some type of like romantic angle to where one person overplays their hand, or they overplay the value that they meant to somebody, right? And I honestly think they're crazy. Like, honestly, to take the life of someone because they don't want to be with you or because the relationship is no longer working, I don't think a sane person would do that, right? But what I want to talk about on this episode, man, is, look, I want to talk about just that. A lot of times, man, when you're in these type of relationships, right, there are warning signs before the inevitable happens, right? And, there's always some form of abuse on both parties' end, on the male side and on the female side, right? There's always some variance of abuse, right? Whether it's verbal, physical, psychological, spiritual, there's always going to be some form of abuse. And I think it's imperative on the person who's the victim of the abuse. You have to make a decision to where you have to find a way to remove yourself from that situation. Every episode I watch, there's always like, they'll show like social media content from the couple, and you know how I feel about social media couples. Like, most of it's cap, they try to create like an illusion or whatever, or they try too hard to convince other people that something is a certain way, right? And if it's real, then like, I'm happy for them. But a lot of times people try too hard on social media to try to paint the image, or they try to paint the picture that they got this perfect ideal thing going on, right? But we all know the reality of it a lot of times, right? And at some point, long before the news cameras, long before the funeral, long before the GoFundMe is set up because they don't have life insurance ever, right? Long before all of that takes place, there were signs that were shown that should have sent off an alert or like a red flag, like, hey, hold on. Is this the person I really want to be with, And for whatever reason, they just stick around. And it could be, a plethora of reasons why. Some people, they stick around for the kids, or some people, they stick around because they can't afford to divorce, or they may live together, right? And in this economy and everything, they may not be able to afford to go get their own place, so they may have to, like, I'm not saying that leaving is always an easy thing, right? But you do have to be cognizant enough to know when you're not in a safe environment, when you're not in a safe situation, when you're not in a relationship and or marriage or union that's conducive to you living a long, healthy life. And I just want you guys to know, man, this ain't going to be a long episode or a long video. I want you guys to get into the habit of literally putting yourself in healthy environments. Normalize the activity and the behavior of, once you have identified that you're not safe in a relationship, you're not safe in a marriage, or like whatever it is, right? you have to abort that relationship. You have to forego that situation, right? Whatever you have going on, right? I don't care how long y'all been together. I don't care how well y'all know each other or think you may know each other. You have to do what's best for you in your situation, right? You have to find a way to get out of that situation, man. You absolutely have to. It's not an if, and, or maybe, right? Because when you're in that type of like scenario, right, the only question is when. It's never a matter of if. You know what I'm saying? It's always a matter of when is it gonna hit the fan? When is it all going to, like, you know, boil to steam? You know, because at some point it's going to, right? And you know, you don't want to end up on a T-shirt or on a GoFundMe post or, you know, on the social media post as a hashtag, all because you chose to stay in a relationship that was counterintuitive, you know? Because, like, the signs be there, bro. And if you want to be delusional, if you want to say, you know, I can fix him or fix her, that's on you, right? But to people who are watching this, man, and they may think, okay, I've seen this before. You know, when patterns show themselves, you have to believe it. When behavior is shown, when people show you who they are, you have to absolutely believe it. Don't question it. Don't deny yourself the logic that God blessed you with. You got to find a way to get out of that situation. Because even though I like to watch, you know, the true crime to understand, you know, human psychology or try to get why people do certain things, there's always a part of me that asks myself when I'm watching these type of episodes, they didn't know that girl was crazy. She didn't know that, you know, if that guy's abusive and he's chunking a video game controller at a wall because he lost a game, doesn't she know eventually the wall is going to be her face? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that's kind of aggressive, but people have to learn how to put two and two together sometimes and realize I may have made a mistake by getting in this relationship or in this marriage. And, you know, life is a very fragile thing. You know, life is precious, you know. So to protect your life, you know, to protect your well-being, you got to do a good job of making sure you vet people properly, right? But sometimes if you vet people, some people are great actors and actresses, right? But when they show you who they are, you have to believe it. Especially when it comes to violence and stuff like that. Because, you know, the twisted crimes, the, you know, podcasts like that, shows like that, they highlight everyday regular people, right? But they're in these relationships to where there's so many red flags. Like, you'll think you're going to Six Flags or something. And, you know, whether or not the victim saw it or not, we'll never know, right? But just looking at these things from the outside in, right? There's so many hints and red flags and stuff like that. So I want people who do watch that kind of content, do you guys like ever get the same feeling like, man, how did they miss that? You know, even in relationships that I've been in before, right? I always make it a habit to, when I see any form of like abuse, right? And if it's a pattern, right? You have to know eventually, even if you're not abused directly, if you're suffering indirect abuse, right? You know, some people, they may be like a little passive in the way they go about abusing, right? It may be verbally. I always say, you know, men, the way a man abuses a woman is like mostly physically, right? You know, but I always also say a lot of women don't know their power, and they don't know their power in words, right? So because most women can't physically like domineer a man, a lot of times they use their words to abuse men, right? Words abuse men the same way fists and feet abuse women, right? So I think we have to get to a point as a society to where we address both sides, right? But when you're dealing with that, right, in real time, you have to know, and you have to come to the realization, you have to know how to gauge whether or not a relationship or a marriage is worth your time. Especially if your safety is in harm. if your well-being is in jeopardy, you have to do what you have to do to get out of that situation. So that's all I got, man, before I start the ramble. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, the CJ Wilkins YouTube channel. I'm very grateful and appreciative of all the love and the support I've been getting. Be sure to check out my podcast also, the Be a Man podcast. We're in season 10. Very excited about it. A lot of content, a lot of good stuff is coming. Again, like, comment, share, subscribe, share this to someone who may be able to benefit from it, right? And as always, I love you guys, and I'm out. Peace.